National Park, in a place called Healy, Alaska. Camping, biking.
Okay, okay. With this look down, I'm extremely jealous. Can you like show us around?
Yeah.
Okay, this is beautiful.
There's all the campers. We
Okay,
have
we can't
like
see it.
a massive group of
Ah, nice.
half of my town shows up in this parking lot in the middle of nowhere, and they've built bike
Wow.
trails, and then everybody comes here and goes biking. So I've only hit one tree so far. I'm calling it a win.
Okay, this looks really beautiful. The weather looks really nice. So welcome Kelly to HERway show. So I'll
Thank
tell
you.
you a little bit about the online talk, and we'll take it from there.
Perfect.
So I've been doing this HERway talk, and I'm hosting women from around the world who have dreams, who are willing to share their fears, achievements, challenges, anything that benefits the world, from a woman to the world. And I'm so happy to have you as like one of the guests. And for those who doesn't know Kelly, I think everybody knows about the bracelet. So Kelly is the one who gave me the bracelet before I go to Everest, and I can't wait to actually share it to continue this legacy. And so Kelly's a pro skier and a coach, and oh yeah, nice. So we're connected. so so yeah, and she's gonna be sharing with us her way today. So Kelly, I know you, I love you, but let's tell everyone, what is your way and how did you get to where you are today, like right next to Denali?
Right? Well, the answer to that question is actually the same. I mean, my way is to have a dream, to listen to what's coming up, in my heart, in my intuition, and then to do it. Even if my mind says, "Oh, what do you think you're going to do? Drive across the state and show up in a parking lot, and then there's going to be people there to take you biking?" Like, in what alternate universe is that a thing? And then I feel halfway crazy as I drive the 5 hours to get here, and then I show up, and sure enough, there's all my friends, and then they're happy to see me, and then I join the group, and an adventure happens. So it's the same way, in my job. I ask for things I don't think I'm supposed to want because I want them, and I don't need a reason to want what I want. And then once I can hear my intuition saying that's what's calling me, then I do it, and I do
Okay.
all of the things to suspend disbelief that it can't happen.
And what about your skiing journey? Tell us a little bit more about how did you become a pro skier?
Well, it's the same story, right? It was so deep in me. Like, I had to ski. It was calling me all the time. And so I would go, and I wanted to ski bigger, better, faster, stronger things. And I wanted to ski 10,000 feet, 3,000 meters for those of you who don't live in the United States, of vertical feet in a day. And I wanted to ski the biggest mountains, and I wanted to ski Denali. I wish it was out right now so I could show you, because I should be able to see it from where I'm sitting. And I wanted to ski big mountains around the world. And then it turns out at the time that I was doing it, I was one of the only women, doing it. And then that got the eyes of ski sponsors and boot sponsors. And then all of a sudden, that's what I'm doing. So I think it just goes back
Wow.
to, following your drive, following your dreams, and then things work out.
Kelly, can you share the story about the Messner route and just explain what the Messner route is and how it happened?
So the Messner route is this couloir, which is to say a long, steep section of a mountain on Denali, Mount McKinley, the tallest mountain in the North America, and it's in Alaska here. And I just went into the mountain to ski in June with a friend. We were like, we'll go to base camp, we'll just go skiing in June, and like that'll be fun. And then we said, well, let's take our stuff, in case we want to summit, because who knows, it's gonna be right there, like we might want to. And I had a friend that asked me, before I went, he was like, what's your goal? And I'm like, we want to go skiing in June. He's like, no, what do you really want to do? And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, no, what do you really want to do? And I was like, well, I mean, God, in my perfect world, if all my dreams came true, I'd ski the Messner Couloir, but like obviously that's not gonna happen. And then I was there the weather was good, the conditions were good, some skiers showed up, and then, you know, like we skied the Orient, which is like just next to the Messner, and got acclimatized, and there was really good ski energy, and that was awesome. And then 2 days later, you know, there was all this momentum, and my partner felt sick. But base camp has like National Park Service. It's like a really safe place. And so she didn't want to ski that day. And I was like, well, do you care if I go? And she's like, yeah, no, it's fine. And so I asked some of the other skiers there. I was like, you know, can I join you guys? And they're like, well, so-and-so's there and so-and-so's there, and, you know, whatever. So I just started walking. I was like, most likely worst case scenario, I get to this place that I was at 2 days before, and I turn around and come back. Best case scenario, you know, I climb the mountain. So, you know, went up to the fixed lines. When I got to the fixed lines, one of the other guys caught up to me, and then we climbed the sketchy part together. And then at like 18,000 feet, the two fast guys were like, well, we're going up. What are you doing? And I felt horrible. I was like, well, I'm going to sit here until I don't want to die anymore. And then I'll go. Then I'll see what I'm in the mood for. And so I drank water and ate food, and then I felt good. And the guy I was with, he's like, I'm going to go down and take pictures. And I was like, well, I'm going to go up. And so I climbed the Orient, and just as I got to the football field, the flat part before the top pitch, I saw the other two guys ski down. And I was like, what are you guys doing? They're like, we're going to the Messner. What are you doing? And I was like, well, I'm going to the summit. It's right there. And so I scampered over to the summit. Scampering sounds fast. Nothing is fast at altitude. And I summited, and I was alone on the summit of Denali, which never happens. Like, it was so cool. I couldn't see another human being, and that mountain's usually pretty crowded. And then I called on the radio, and they're like, I was like, where is everybody? They're like, we're at the Messner, we're waiting. And I was like, how do I get there? They're like, to the rock, go under, follow the tracks. I was like, all right, I'll be there in 5. So I skied down, got to the top, and they're like, how do you feel? I'm like, great. How are you guys? They're like, cold. Are you ready? I was like, yeah, let's go. And then another guy just topped out at the same time. And so then 4 of us started skiing it. And then 2 others from our group came in from the side, and they joined us. And so ultimately we skied the Messner in a 6-pack of like just amazing skiers, like my ultimate dream, like a dream I couldn't have even come up with if I tried, because I would never believe that could happen in my life. And then all of a sudden there I am, and it's happening. And, you know, those are the kinds of things you never recover from, because after your dreams come true, after dreams you wouldn't dare have happen, you can no longer believe that dreams don't come true. And so now I don't get to be lazy.
Okay. So unplanned, spontaneously, you found yourself skiing the Messner route on Denali. I don't think like that's something you see every day. So that would bring us to the topic, which is Girls Guide on how to do life on their own terms, which is basically how you do it. So tell us more about this.
Well, I wrote it after a ski trip, actually. I don't even know why. I was just having this like moment of genius, a post-flow state moment of creativity. And I was just writing down, you know, what is the Girl's Guide to doing life on your own terms? Because that's what I believe in, right? And that's what I teach, is like, how do you just do life how your intuition says versus the way culture tells you you're supposed to, or whatever tells you you're supposed to. And so I wrote it down, and it's kind of based on a lot of what I've learned in the mountains, but it's how I go about my profession. It's how I go about, you know, basically everything. So I'm going to consult my handy journal here, because it's where I keep everything that matters.
Nice.
But so number 1, so I should warn you also that I'm an engineer, and I worked for 17 years in oil and gas. So like sometimes I talk like an engineer, and I refer to things of this nature. So number 1 is do the math. If you can see how the thing has a potential desirable outcome, you can see how it works, pursue it. Just because something doesn't fit a mold doesn't mean it lacks potential for awesome, and trying isn't a commitment. Number 2, trying isn't a commitment. The chances you are taking may or may not be a good long-term model, but you'll learn along the way, and truly the only way to find out is to try.
So
number 3,
again, they have to try.
Yeah, and I'm going to stop after number 3, because the first 3 kind of go together. Number 3 is assess the most likely worst case scenario. for actualizing your idea. And if that outcome is acceptable and the potential upside is dreamy, then take the chance, do the thing. There's always a horrific outcome that almost surely won't happen. So ground yourself in the most realistic failure scenario. So if we go back to the Messner, you know, I wake up in the morning and I'm like, I want to go ski. The weather's good. Like today might be the day. So I do the math and I can see how it works, right? And trying is not a commitment. I'm like, all right, I'll, you know, ask people around. I'll see, you know, I'll give it a try, right? And then assess the most likely worst case scenario. And so I decided I'm going to start up this mountain. The most likely worst case scenario is that by 18,000 feet, where I felt really safe, you could see base camp. I'd been there the day before. I trusted the conditions. It would be really difficult to die. I'm sure you could do it if you really tried, but like it'd be real hard. And it's like, okay, the most likely worst case scenario is I hike to 18,000 feet and I ski back. Like I can handle that. You know, the best case scenario is somehow I keep going and something else happens and maybe I, you know, go all the way. And so I think like assessing the most likely worst case scenario, even when I drove across the state yesterday, I mean, the most likely worst case scenario is I got here and nothing worked out. And it's like, all right, well then I'd go home. And so
you
if I
just
can
jump
handle
into uncertainty and the unknown and you let it be. But while you're in this all uncertainty, you're doing the calculation, and by every step, you're taking the next step.
Yeah, and I think the most likely worst case scenario, like our brains can always imagine a horrific end, right? So, but the idea is don't go to the horrific end. Don't go to the worst case scenario because the worst case scenario is like, anyways, it's crazy. But the most likely worst case of like, you know, I walked into Aconcagua by myself, right? And I hired mules and I was like, I'm going to walk into base camp and see what happens. And I said, my most likely worst case scenario is that's 3 days and $500 I never get back. And it's like, all right, I can handle that because the best case scenario is I walk in, I meet people, we climb the mountain, and I ski the Polish. Guess which one happened? And so it's this mechanism I have to say, you know, can I handle the way it could be non-ideal? And if I can handle that, then try.
And would it be correct to say that you've built this mentality of, you know what, I'll hop into it, see how it goes, but you're still willing to turn back
Absolutely.
if it doesn't work out, and you're completely fine with that?
Yeah, and that's part. It's a really good point because it's part of assessing the most likely worst case scenario. Because you've already said to yourself, if it's 3 days and $500 I never get back, great, that's no problem. I said to myself yesterday, if it's 10 hours of driving in 2 days I never get back, fine, I can handle that. You know, you know when I've done anything professionally, it's like, you know, even if when I took my first job in the Middle East, I worked in Oman and I didn't know what it would be like, right? And I said the most likely worst case scenario is they're not ready for me and everything that I am, you know, that's uncharacteristic. And I gave myself permission that if the world isn't ready for me, I don't have to take it personally. And so for me, the most likely worst case scenario is that there were social cultural factors I couldn't control, you know, and so I give myself permission for that scenario to happen. And then I'm just comfortable with that. And I say, okay, well, if that happens, that's fine because the potential upside is that my dreams come true. And like, that's super worth it.
Nice. So what would be the next point?
Yeah. Number 4 is once you've committed to trying, suspend disbelief. So quiet the voices, both internal and external, telling you that your desired outcome is statistically impossible or at least severely unlikely. That's the whole point. There's no model here. You're doing your own thing. That it hasn't happened doesn't mean it won't happen. When I walked into Aconcagua, that's when I came up with this one because the hardest thing I think I've ever done is leaving the trailhead because my mind was just like, what do you think you're doing? You know, and all the doubt and all of the like, have you lost your mind? Like, what? You know, and so it's suspend disbelief. And that's when it's like, okay, I hear you. How about just be quiet? Like suspend disbelief and try. Because you've already said you can handle the worst case, the most likely worst case scenario. So you just have to suspend disbelief and try. And it's hard work to quiet those voices. They can be very loud. So when things are hard, number 5, when things are hard and emotions come up, do what I call an engineering assessment of feelings. There are many tactics for this, which I teach. And the idea is to separate identity from emotion and ensure your thoughts are helping you. So I think there's a lot of ways we can have hurtful thoughts, like, who do you think you are doing this? Or, maybe we have stories about the way we look, or whether we're worthy of love, or whether or not we belong, or whether or not people like us. And it's like we hurt ourselves all the times by assuming really bad things about ourselves, or what we're capable of, or what we deserve. And so
I think it's
I think
bad
it's really
self-talk, and
important.
it's very common among women, I think, and men too,
Mm-hmm.
but I've been seeing it a lot as well. And
Yeah.
how do you
And
deal with
so,
that?
well, there's 1,000 ways, but I mean, I've done a lot of work, and I set rules for myself, and I make promises, and neutral or better. I just don't allow myself to have those thoughts that are less than neutral. I don't make myself love myself all the time, or like be like, oh my God, you're the best. But neutral or better. That's my rule for my self-assessment. So
Nice.
yeah. And then, so number 6 is actually really hard too. And then learn to detach from the outcome. So, this one's tough. Honor your longing and desired outcome by pursuing it wholeheartedly, but actually stay unattached to how it develops and unfolds. Trust that by navigating your heart's path, listening to your intuition, and doing the next right thing again and again, it'll work out, perhaps better than you dared to imagine. And so, you do all this, you're like, okay, I'm going to go after this big dream, like it's going to be awesome. But then somehow you have to be like, but like, it's super unlikely that this can happen. So like, I can't be attached to it happening exactly how I want it to, but I have to try to make it happen exactly how I want it to. So it's this holding opposing spaces, of giving it everything you've got and being unattached to how it turns out, because sometimes life has a different lesson for you, or sometimes the mountains have a different lesson, or your career takes a turn, you're like, whoa, didn't see that coming. And I think that's okay, right? And so it's just having a growth mindset to say, okay, wow, turn in the road, like, let's turn. That wasn't the dream, that wasn't how it happened in my mind, but maybe that just means we're on to something better, something more authentic.
And it's all about trying. It's
Mm-hmm.
literally mostly it's focusing on trying. You have to
Yeah,
try with your
yeah.
own terms.
And that's perfect lead into number 7. Just do the thing you must do. The thing that's in you. Don't question your drive, honor it. And if it goes dormant, observe what's pulling on your heartstrings and follow it. Do the next right thing until you find it. So it's just like, listen to yourself. Hear what your heart is telling you, your intuition, your still small voice, some would call it. And all of us have this unique perspective. We have these unique drives and desires. And so it's about hearing those, honoring those, and then living your most authentic life, because that's where, things are so joyful. And, that's where a lot of fulfillment comes from, and freedom and flow. And then number 8, this one's optional, but I like this one. Wear bright colors, be the sunshine, because why not? You may as well.
Always.
This is about as
Nice
neutral
one.
as
I
my
like
colors
it.
ever get. But
Yeah.
sorry, there's winds now, so if hopefully it's not messing with the sound, but it's
Nice.
a little bit,
Those are really good points. I think that they're very impactful if we actually implement them. And it's definitely all tested, and you've been doing it, and you're a living example of it works if you try. Now, can you tell us a little bit more about your coaching? Like, do
well.
you
I mean,
coach
my
around
coaching is,
things?
yeah, I mean, it's exactly that, right? So my coaching is for people who want to create an authentic life of dreams, who want to live out their calling, rather than do what society tells them to. And what I know about that is that it's hard. It is really hard to go against cultural expectations, to do things that have never been done before, to manage your own internal dialogues. And I've developed a lot of tools over time, you know, working rotation in oil and gas, you know, with like what in Oman it was like 8,000 to 10 ratios, right? Climbing mountains. You know, I'm a private pilot, and learning how to fly and land. You know, I could land in places like that, you know,
Wow.
and you know, so all of this is hard, right? And there are
Yeah.
setbacks. Things go wrong a lot, and so resilience and getting through that, and just having the skills and the tools and the recovery to go after dreams, to persevere when things get hard, and to have a partner, you know, essentially as you're going into this unknown, you know. Even when I've walked in to things and done things quote alone, I've never actually been alone, and so we always have our support networks, and so my offering
Nice.
is to be part of a support network for people who want to pursue awesome.
That's beautiful. This is beautiful. Okay. And what about when you were like, I remember because we met on a mountain, right? So you've hiked around the Middle East and you have a vast amount of information on that. And you're writing a blog. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, it's super. It's my passion project. So when for a long time when I was you know, when I first moved to Alaska and started traveling the world, I just did adventures and wrote about them. And I stopped writing that site. I went through a period of a lot of injuries.
Mm.
Hashtag things go wrong. Um, and I stopped writing at that point. But then my site still got like 30 hits a day, you know, and people would tell me all the time, like, oh, that's how we plan our adventures in Alaska. That's how we, you know, we use your site to know where to go skiing. And so I like that it's a resource for people. So and I've done a lot of traveling, and I have a lot of good insights on how to go about it. So I've done a lot around Oman and a little bit in Jordan, and so that's what I've been writing up lately. Is just kind of a travel guide of all the greatest spots, because I think the world is really intimidated by the Middle East, and my experience in the Middle East is that it's one of the best places I've ever been to travel, and I freaking love it. And I think more people should go and demystify that it's some scary place, you know. So I've been having a great time reliving those. So it's at my blog or at my website, which is just my name. $10 if you can spell it right. But it's kellyokonek.com, and then /blog gets you to the trip reports. But there's some other stuff on the site too. So definitely would love if you guys check it out. Been trying to make it into a more user friendly presentation. So
Nice. Nice. And I'll share the blog website and your credentials, Instagram, and all that social media on the post because
perfect. Thank
people
you.
need to check it out. There's a lot of takeaways on that. Now, tell me, what does women empowerment mean to you?
Okay, so women empowerment to me, and again, I wrote it down because I wanted to get it right. It means to me that every woman has the capability to listen to her intuition in still small voice, the courage to pursue her inner calling and follow its guidance, and the freedom to make her dreams a reality. So the first two are about what happens inside of us, and the third one is that the world changes a little bit so that we all have the
Yeah.
freedom to do what's in us.
Kelly, that was really nice. I think there was a lot of takeaways for so many women and men. And I wish we can share more stories of yours. Stories like the engine failure and stories like all these skiing places you've been on. Like this, we can talk about this
You
forever.
want to do the failure series? Well, you know what? I tell you what. One thing, if I'm an expert at one thing, I think it is resilience, right? Because it's like,
Yeah,
you know, and yet I wouldn't. It's been worth it, you know. All of my dreams that I've pursued. Like, I mean, I think being willing to fail is part of it, and you know, fail gracefully and hopefully fail non-catastrophically. But yeah,
yeah,
it
yeah,
is part of it.
yeah. Okay, so what are you gonna do for the rest of the day?
Well, I'm
The
gonna
weather
finish my
looks good.
coffee, and then I'm gonna go downhill biking and try and stay on the trail instead of hit trees. Um,
This makes me jealous. I wish I was good.
You're welcome
Okay.
anytime. Everybody's
I
welcome to
am
come to
coming.
paradise here.
I am definitely coming again. Okay, so I'm gonna let you be. Enjoy your coffee and have a great morning. And I'll
All
speak
right.
to you
Thanks
soon.
so much. Thanks for so
Thank
much
you
for
for
having me
being
on.
here.
Bye, everybody. Here's your parting view.
Thank you for that. We need it.
I know it's so green. Finally, it's getting green here. The snow just melted.
Yeah.